All right, guys. Hi. So, a little bit of a different way to go today. Wanted to talk about statistics. Yeah, fun stuff. All right. So, I'm going to talk about the Bureau of Labor Statistics. I heard the idea again about like, oh, the wage gap doesn't exist. The wage gap doesn't exist. But here's the thing: this is the raw data. This is where you would find the raw data. So as you can see here, you can see a lot of different things. This bureau keeps track of everything. So if there's anything that you're like, whenever you hear the unemployment rates, if you don't believe in the wage gap, then you cannot use the unemployment rates. Any of these other things, don't use them because you don't believe in the wage gap. You don't believe in these numbers first of all. So like, no, but also like the statistics come from the same place, the same place. All right, I really like this part. So you can just look up areas and all sorts of different things about those areas. So if you want to know the unemployment rates for like Chicago, Detroit, like specifically, I was looking at the Midwest today. It's kind of planning out. So if you wanted to look those up, you can. That this is something definitely that you this is available. It's free, I promise. It says even at the top that this is an official website of the U.S. government, and so if you ever go to a different one and you don't see this stuff, you're in the wrong place. The other thing to remember is that the government, I think, still runs on like Windows like 3.0. So like you can kind of tell when there's something that's like government related. If you ever been to the IRS webpage, you know that it's like, okay, this looks like it's been updated like 20 years ago. But these do keep up with trends and yeah, specifically. So I did see this thing about workplace hearing loss. Just a random side note, totally interested in like my generation's hearing loss because of earbuds. Very interested in how that's going to play out because I have a feeling that a lot of us are going to have no hearing at all. And maybe that's what ASMR is about, right? Okay. So down here, you got your topics, your demographics, your industry, occupation, geography, and business costs. Now, you can look up how many people are in whatever industry. Like it's just these are the raw statistics. Like this is just raw data. Actually, I shouldn't even call them statistics. I should call them raw data because that's what this is. So now you can kind of look around, see what's going on. Yeah, like I mean, I can't believe how much they really like pay attention to because like I was really surprised by this bottom one, this time use one, because it says that they take a survey of people to see what various activities like paid work, childcare, volunteering, and socializing that they're doing. How are they spending their time, which I think is really interesting. So you can look up the raw data of that. Yeah, consumer spending, illness and injuries, all of that stuff. So I was particularly interested in this demographic characteristic of the labor force. Okay, let's go with that. So you can see here, there's a lot of demographics. For me, this is really interesting. And I just, just all of these different things. So like, just, how many people in the entire population have PhDs or masters or like bachelor's degrees? You can look that up. Foreign born workers, older workers, you can look it up by age. I know race and Hispanic ethnicity, like, they yes, they're still using those words. So that's that's what we're doing. I mean, school enrollment, very interesting raw data on that as well. I believe that at this point, there are more women enrolling in bachelor programs than there are with men. And I think that might be something to definitely eventually, like if you're really into like these type of statistics, to look into. And I'm guessing that eventually that's going to be one of those things that people postulate all the time about. So women. All right. So now if you just looked at this, you wouldn't see the whole picture because you might be like, Vanessa, it only goes to 2019. And let me tell you, it does not. This is all the past earning stuff. And you can go as far as 1998 with these PDFs, okay? All the way down. Now, this doesn't have anything to do actually with the wage gap, but I do want to just have you see what raw data looks like that hopefully you don't have any real opinions about, like just raw data. So I mean, you can do earnings by demographic, that's a whole thing, but I do want to go down to this thing that says annual tables. And if you see this, employment by detailed occupation and sex, right? You can see I looked up the PDF earlier, and you can look up industry as well. So this is occupation, so you'll see some of this stuff. So this sometimes is a little bit difficult to understand because I'm used to looking at not I'm not used to looking at raw data. I'm used to looking at like the research articles. So they've already looked at the raw data. They've already kind of like, they might give you these numbers, but they might not give you these numbers, and all of the numbers and tables that they give you are related. So like it's a whole thing. So this top part, total 16 years and older who are employed. And like, I think this is full-time employees. So you can see it's 150. It looks like 150,000. That is actually not the number. It's 150 million because this says at the top numbers in thousands. And again, one of those things just want to be very clear about. And it says up here percentage of total employed. So this is 2020. So this is why I told you, like, don't come to me and be like you're an idiot because there's only 2019 on there. I know that it looks like there's only 2019 on there. It's actually 2020. You have to look for it in that very specific way, right? So of the total percentage of all employed, there are 46.8% of women who are employed. And then like all of these other ones are of the total employed. Very important. I'm not used to looking at, again, data that goes across. I'm used to looking at data that goes down and that relates to the other data. So like, it took me a while to understand raw data. This is just reads across. So I was particularly interested in, oh, where did it go? I've gone too far. Where is it? Sorry, thought I had it like right up. Okay, where's the service ones? Must be all the way down here. Of course, I'm interested in the service and healthcare. Yep, the healthcare practitioners practitioners and technical occupations. So that's 9 million. And of that, 74.4% are women, 75.6% are white, 12.1% are Black or African American, 9.4% are Asian, and 9.4% are, I think they use the words Hispanic or Latino. I know they're outdated words, but these are the ones they use. And you can look up here, the veterinarians, 8.4%. Sorry, I keep doing that. 84.4% are women. Registered nurses, there are 3 million, 87.4% are women. There are, like, as it says, like nurse midwives, there's about 5,000, and they keep no data on those, which is kind of, there's like a couple of other ones of these that are kind of funny. So again, I want to show you that this is just the raw data. There's no, hey, we think that it's because of this or that. This is just honestly the raw data. Just the raw data. That's what I'm telling you about, like just the raw data. So you can clearly see here, earnings by demographic. Now, the cool thing about this is that this is an interactive one. So you could just like really look at all of this. It's really interesting because Yeah, oh my gosh, it's such a weird thing to just be like, oh, I just want this information, and here it is. And I also don't know why more people don't do this. Again, this is the raw data. There's nothing in this that says, hey, this is the reason for that, right? I think that's the political part. And you can, again, see. Do you want to see, let's see, 16 and to 24-year-olds, right? We can look at the total, but let's look at median earnings per week, so weekly earnings. And then you can click those two, and then you can retrieve data. And this will give you that information. So all right, it says that weekly and hourly earnings data from the current population survey. And it gives it to you, right? So this is, this should be men, yep, of all races, all origins, 16 to 24, all education levels, wage and salary workers, excluding incorporated self-employed people, and labor force status, employed full-time. So one of those things that I will talk about. All right, so you can see back to 2011, quarter one, men earned $470 per week if they were between the ages of 16 and 24, and that you see in 2021, $634 for that same population in quarter one. So that is, I believe, let's see, is it 4 months? No, it's 3 months. So that is March, or that's January to March, and then it's April, May, June, and then right, because it's 3 months. It's every 3 months. It's a quarter. Like, I feel like I'm missing people. Like, right? That doesn't seem right. Anyway, and some of you are probably like, "Man, you are such a fucking idiot," and I'm like, "Yeah, I probably am. There's times." Anyway, all right. So we are looking at this one down here. So it says unadjusted, medium, usual weekly earnings of all. Yeah. So women, 16 to 24 years old, all industries, all occupations, all races, all origins, all education levels, wage and salary workers, except for incorporated employed, and has to be employed full time. So you can see that in quarter one in 2011, it was $426 per week. It is now up to $593. Now, if you compare the two, 634 compared to 593, is there a wage difference? Yes, there is. I don't know why. It doesn't say. That's the raw data. That's the raw data. And you can look that up for any of any demographic. Like, same thing. You can look up the total. You can look up, all of these other things. So if you look up just the total, let's look up the total. Median, and just everyone. Well, there's a lot of data that I'm like, ooh, let me compare those. That sounds interesting. All right. So same thing. So it says right there, not seasonally adjusted. This is the usual weekly earnings, all industry, all occupations, all races, all origins, 16 years and over, all levels of education, wage and salary workers, employed full time. So this is for men, 2011, $829 per week, and now it's $1,089 per week. And if you look at women, same thing. The all races, all origins, wage and salary workers. Median is 683 in the first quarter of 2011, and first quarter of 2021 is 900. And again, you can see there is a pay gap different, or there is a pay difference, and we don't know why. That's not what this statistic is. That's not what these data are supposed to, like, really, like, does it really do? You can include graphs. Oh, let's include graphs and annual averages because that looks cool. How do I get to those? More formatting options. Do I just, oh, press go. It's tiny little things. You have to look. Okay. And yeah, so you can see there's a graph. 2011 to 2021, just remember that the lowest on this axis is 800. So this looks a little bit more definite and defined than actually is the difference. It's like that's just what, a $300 difference. Like, yeah. And then you can see here, same thing. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so very interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, so medians. Why do they decide to use the median? Now, you can use the mean in this, right? You can use the mean. The mean would be subject to change depending on extremes. So when you have an extreme like waiters are paid $2 per hour because they rely on tips, and then you have like someone who's a salary worker who makes, let's say, 6 million per month, or per year, sorry. And you know, like that, those are going to definitely affect the mean because they're the extremes. So, you know, let's say I'm like trying to throw out numbers and like make them seem like they work. All right. So let's say that you like, I'm just going to use like two instead of like $2. All right. So like, let's say you have a couple of twos, you have maybe 10 people who are making $7 an hour. You have like 20 people who are making $20 an hour, and you have one person who's making $600 an hour, right? So like if you do the mean on that, it's going to be extreme, right? Like you're going to be like, oh, the mean is blah, 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 right? If you do the median, then you're probably going to get someone who makes $20 an hour, right? Because like you've already like, you are not going to be affected by the other two extremes. Like the main people in the middle, right, are like earning something different than all of the other people. So that's why they use the median. They also use the median for housing prices. You can look up the averages, but the average is going to be, I think, sometimes like a bit higher than the mean, median, depending. And so that's why they use the median. You might also be curious about the employed full-time. That's one of the things that I always wonder about this. And I think that, you know, having done statistics myself, several statistic classes myself, it doesn't make sense to include part-time workers. And the reason is because it gets too complicated. Makes it very easy to look at. And you might have an idea of what a part-time worker is. You might be like, oh, you know, someone who works 20 hours. Well, is that necessarily a part-time worker? And also, let's say that this part-time worker has 4 jobs. Which job are you looking at? Like, what job are you looking at? And so people will be like, well, this doesn't actually reflect what is true. And I'm like, well, in statistics, that's what the discussion portion of any research article is, because they will say things like, this includes only employed full-time people. So like these are people working over 40 hours a week and can get benefits, blah, 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 right? So and it says it excludes incorporated self-employed people. So like that's a whole thing, right? It's a whole thing. And it's very important to note, right? That's why they like mention it specifically. So like it becomes too crazy, I think. It becomes less easy to like see the real statistics if you're defining what it means to work part-time, and like how are you going to get like the data on the people who are working part-time. Let's say it's like, let's say 16 hours a week, 2 shifts, that's, you know, that's working part-time, right? Well, there might still be some people who are upset by that because they work 2 hours a week and they get $600 per hour, right? And they should be included in the statistic. Okay, so you're not really getting like a whole entire picture. And then, again, going back to if this person has 4 part-time jobs, maybe they're working 4 hours here, maybe they have, their side hustle that's making, a couple $100. Like, it becomes so messy. And, it's not that I want to be like, oh, well, you guys don't count. But what I am trying to say is that it just becomes harder and harder to kind of pinpoint what entirely is going on. If we can look at full-time employed people and to be like, okay, well, this is the statistic that we can easily grab and tell you what the difference is, then this is, what we can kind of like give you some idea about. But obviously, this is not the entire population. It's not everyone's circumstances, and I'm guessing that some people are going to be very mad because part-time people are not included in this. And, but, there are a lot of people who don't have full-time jobs. Yes, that's not like, again, this is like one of those things where it's like, I get it. It excludes those part-time people, but it also is very difficult to include those part-time people because then you have to define what part-time is, and you have to define what a part-time job is. And like, there's so much to it that I'm like, I mean, it sounds like they have like a whole lot of people looking at these numbers and compiling them. So I'm like, it doesn't seem like it would be completely out of range, but also like it becomes very, very, very messy. And, I'm also thinking like, oh, I wonder like what happens when you have two full-time jobs, like how do you, how do you figure all of that out? What might be interesting, and I'm not going to cover it now, and if you want to look this up, maybe you can look up the underemployed. So they definitely have the unemployed statistics, but maybe looking up the underemployed, because like, when you are unemployed, you have to like, you have to give them the hours that you work if you worked. And then they take away some of the money from unemployment if you don't need it. Like if you're making, yeah, like there's like a way for them definitely to look at the underemployed, because like some of the underemployed would still be getting unemployment like supplement, like insurance, all of that stuff. So like definitely something to like look into if that's something that, you definitely want to look into. If, so like I know with the undergrad, grad school, and second grad school that I went to, definitely statistics was pushed a lot. So even if you feel like you can't like switch majors and you maybe don't want to be a statistician, research psychology is definitely a field. They would definitely look at this and look at all of the different things. And as I said, like, I just have this interest in like hearing loss. And so I'm like, oh, hearing loss by industry. Oh, what? And seeing if, maybe that's going down. That would be interesting, at least for me. But, these are the type of things that you can kind of look at and figure out for yourself, and look at all of the different things. You can look at the difference between what like African Americans make and what Asians make, and like what Hispanic, Latino make, and see like, maybe there's a difference there. Maybe there's other things in all of this that you could be looking up and getting mad about, but also pointing out to other people and being like, hey, but here's this thing that's been going on. Like, why out of the whole population, of people who are working, there's such low percentages of people who are working from, X amount of, working full time from X amount of, like race or what did they call it? Ethnic origin. So, like that's, that might be something to also look into. And this is, again, just the raw data. The raw data will show, because it doesn't care. Like there's no one back here being like, oh, I don't know. I mean, maybe I shouldn't include this number. No, this is the number. That's it. This is the number, you know. These are the numbers. This is what's published. This is available to you if you want it. And it's easy. Like, I didn't go through anything that's like, a backdoor place or something. It's like, this is the exact thing. This is where people would get this information and then make inferences on it, yeah, and talk about that in kind of their discussion section of their research papers. Anyway, I hope that was helpful, and I will talk with you soon.